live in a haunted house in Canton, Connecticut. The house was built in the early 60s by a man who never married and devoted his time to creating these beautiful gardens that surrounded the property. Certain features make this house very unique. You cross running water to reach the house. There's a stone circle in the woods near the property, and the house sits in the center of a large clearing surrounded by trees. Steve died in the late 80s to early 90s. He had no immediate family, and he was dead in the house for a few days before anyone found him. The house was vacant for about a year. It had two owners in very quick succession, and then my fiance bought it in 1997. Shortly after he moved in, it became very clear that Steve was still around. He still regards Pond House, our name for the place, as his. One night, after beginning the first major renovation project, Don, my fiance, was in bed and felt someone push him. One morning, I was getting ready for work when he called very early to ask me if I'd come over to the place the night before. I said no. I'd been home all evening and asked him why he thought so, and he said he'd been asleep on the couch when he heard footsteps coming up the steps and someone who sounded like me calling his name. He was so sure it was me, he waited for me to come and say hi, and when I didn't, he searched the house looking for me. No one was there. A few weeks later, I experienced the same thing, except I was already in bed, and Don had fallen asleep on the couch that evening watching TV. As I was snuggling down to sleep, I heard a voice that sounded like Don call my name. I also heard Don snoring. I sat up and said, "Cut that out. It doesn't work when you can hear the person snoring too." Another night, I woke up in the middle of the night and heard what sounded like a baseball game on TV. Again, I thought Don had fallen asleep with the TV on, until I looked over, saw it was 2 a.m., and that Don was asleep next to me. I also realized it was the middle of January, and even on cable, baseball in January is pretty rare. Another thing, Don never leaves the TV on. He turns it off when he comes to bed. Now that I live here too, I've seen a lot of movement out of the corner of my eye. My son has seen orbs float around his room. My middle daughter has photographed orbs. Don's daughter has seen a man around the property. There's a lot of activity that happens in the property itself, and Steve doesn't much change even now. But he and we seem to have reached an amicable agreement. Thanks for reading. Hi, my name is Amber, and I've written a few of my experiences down for you before. This one is one that my mother told me about last night. This story happened a few days ago. Now for a little background. My mother lives in a small town in Washington State called Goldendale. She lives just outside the town itself in a new mobile home that she rents from my husband's recruiter and his wife. My younger brother and his girlfriend and their son are staying with her for a while. Her health isn't great. My nephew is 4 years old. He is central to this story. They are the only 4 people in the house. The other night, my mother, brother, his girlfriend, and their son were in the living room watching TV after dinner. My nephew was sitting on the floor in the front room, coloring. He glanced up into the kitchen, then back down to his coloring book, and quite casually asked my brother, "Daddy, who is the little girl in the kitchen doing the dishes?" My brother jumped up and ran into the kitchen, knowing that no one else was supposed to be in the house, and my mother also went and looked. They didn't find anything, of course. Now keep in mind that my nephew wasn't at all frightened. He was totally nonchalant about it. So they asked him what he saw. He told them that the little girl had dark hair and a white dress on. He told them her name, and that she was sad and crying. They asked him why, and he told them it was because her daddy had killed her mother. They asked him where she went, and he told them that she flew into Grandma's bedroom. My mother and brother were mystified. I told her I wouldn't worry too much about it, that my nephew wasn't frightened, and that whatever it was didn't hurt anyone, so it should be okay, but that she needed to research the land and ask the owners about the mobile home. Try to find out if there were any double murders close to the area, in the house itself. I personally think that the little girl was murdered at the same time as her mother, and maybe doesn't even realize it. Poor thing. Thanks for reading. This is my second story, of many more to come, that I am submitting. On January 2nd, 2004, at 6 a.m., the alarm clock went off, and my wife needed to get up for work. I was off that day, and did not need to get up. Well, to go back for a second, I need to add that on New Year's Eve, we got a new dog. He was about a year old when we got him, and he weighed about 100 pounds, and had some pretty good height on him. So, with that out of the way, my wife and I laid in bed and talked for about 10 or 15 minutes before she got up. She then got out of bed and went downstairs to take the dog outside before she showered. I laid awake in bed for some time because it was hard for me to fall asleep because I have some disorders, insomnia, and sleep apnea. So I rolled over to my stomach and partially on my right side and was basically laying with my head on my right arm that was extended out under the pillow. As I was lying there wide awake, I heard a noise like someone had entered the bedroom. I lifted my head and looked towards the door, but no one was there. But as I went to put my head back down on the pillow, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I thought that maybe the dog had come back into the room, so I looked again, and nothing. I put my head back on the pillow and lay there for about another 30 seconds when I felt something lightly grab my wrist of my right arm. Before I could act, something just pounced on me. The force of pressure was just intense, with most of the pressure being on the part of my shoulders and the back of my neck. The thing that grabbed my wrist also intensified, leaving me unable to move. I was pinned down for about 10 seconds, which seemed a lot longer at the time. Now, I'm a big guy, weighing at 285 pounds, built like a football player, and I was not able to move a muscle. As this weight lifted off of me, I spun around in bed to find nothing there. I got up and ran down the stairs. As I got to the bottom step, my wife was coming out of the bathroom, and she looked at me and seen something was wrong and asked me what happened. And I told her I got pinned down in bed, and she got freaked out. I mean, that she got so freaked out that she left for work early. So for the next month, I really couldn't stop wondering if whatever it was going to return, and still more experiences are to come. Thanks for reading. I used to work at Clemens Unit, a medium security prison in Brazzarona, Texas. I started in 1999 and quickly heard of the past. There was an inmate cemetery across the street from Highway 36, which was the main drag through the town. Only markers remain, with numbers there, but I wanted to explain about while I was living next door to the grounds. A trailer park was there on the property line. Some cool foggy nights, as you would look through the tree lines towards the prison, you could see dark figures walking through the trees. On closer observation, you could notice them walking the fields. Host squad, as they called it. My wife was on the phone one night, talking to one of her friends, and freaked out over seeing these images. The next work shift, I explained what we experienced to one of the sergeants, and he said that a lot of death and bad things of the past all over the property was present. I really believe that now, because starting about late 2000, I noticed a lot more things happening at the prison. Okay, the history lesson of this place starts in 1890. An inmate was brutally murdered in the original building, which housed 6, 40 to 63 man tanks. We never knew why he was killed, but the inmate started describing an older black man, an original in black and white striped shirt pants combo, walking around in the old stage area. Also, among the tanks, he would also be present during the 12 to 2 a.m. time. I personally saw him in the old kitchen area a few times, and also through the back hall area. He would just walk past me, smoking I think, and walking towards the outdoors. Sometimes, I would go with the inmate up to the upper tanks by the law library to the storage stage room, and always feel cold chills, warm spots, and even Gus, as we called him, walking around from one end of the stage to the other in 2002. I was called upon by some inmates as I worked the tanks that night to help an inmate in the toilet area. Come to find out that he was having a massive heart attack, and as my sergeant and I were helping him to get on the gurney, he literally died in my arms. After that, Gus came around a lot more frequently. Even if Gus wasn't there, things started to happen anyway. Black images floating around among inmates at night, the smell of rotting flesh in certain parts of tank number 3. It really got bad for a while. A lesson that can be taken away from this story is that if you want to work in a prison, be ready for haunts, ghosts, spirits, and other bumps and smells along the way. Barcelona County, Texas, is especially haunted because of its juicy past. If you like what you read in here, please visit the County of Ghosts in Texas. I know that your site already has the rave, located in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, listed as one of the buildings in your haunted places index, but I honestly believe that the building right next door to it should be listed too. The building is named the Sheridan, and it's one of those very old buildings that used to be a hotel. It feels as if you traveled back to the 1950s every time you entered it. There is even one of those elevators that is built something like a cage and has a wooden panel you have to slide back to get to. The apartments even have fuse boxes and those lock boxes in the kitchen cabinet that used to be used to store packages that were delivered from the mail carrier. Anyway, moving on with the subject, I just moved into this building like 2 weeks ago. I went into the rental office during my lunch break on a Monday morning and paid my security deposit for it and received my keys. The whole thing only took like a half an hour, and I still had a half an hour to waste for lunch, so I decided to go over and check out my new home. Usually, people do this before they pay for an apartment or home, but to be honest, I had to hurry up and move into a cheaper apartment. Money is tight, and I didn't care what apartment looked like, just as long as I could get a decrease in rent before it was too late. So, that being said, I just took the first apartment available. I walked into the building and went to the second floor, where my apartment was, and was about to put the key into the door, but I swear I began feeling very, very strange, standing at the door of this apartment. Thinking back on it, I feel kinda retarded, because I really had no reason to have any sense of foreboding, but it was there anyway. I mean, I stood there at the door with my key inside of the lock, but something kept telling me not to turn that key, and while I was standing there, I kept feeling eyes on me. I started to laugh at myself, but then I actually heard something, or maybe someone moving inside of the apartment. At this point, I didn't think anything was funny anymore. I just took my key out of the door and left the building. I still haven't moved in because I'm kinda nervous about going back there alone. I haven't even been back to visit the apartment without someone with me, but I know eventually I'll have to move into the apartment. I paid for it and signed a lease, god dang. I don't know, maybe I'm just really dumb right now, but I'm really convinced that something is not right with that apartment. I haven't said anything to anyone though, because I don't want them to think I'm a superstitious fool. Hi. I've never written about this, but when I was 16, I had an unbelievable event happen to me. Over my childhood years, I've felt that I've been visited by deceased family members, especially right after they have passed on. I have had them touch my hair, visit me in dreams, and just feel them there. I've always been a light sleeper. Well, around 3 to 4 a.m. on a weeknight, when my entire family was asleep, I was awakened by a dark shadow standing in front of me. I was terrified and couldn't move. It was black, but somehow transparent. It kept looking at me, then quickly started to move back and forth, almost floating. It then ran up to me, then ran down the hall, and slammed the bathroom door shut. Maybe it had to go. Anyway, I finally had the courage to yell for my parents and had them look around the house. Even today, nearly 15 years later, I still have shadows following me upstairs, every night. Another time, I was 6 months pregnant with my daughter. I was up late one night, crying very hard about a decision I had to make. I always prayed to myself at night. On that particular night, I said out loud, "Mom and Pop, if you can hear me, please show me a sign that you understand how I feel." At that moment, my blinds shot up on their own. I was shocked. That never happens. I never met my mother-in-law, whom I called out to, but I knew Pop. I just hoped they understood and agreed with the decision that I made. A few years back, my grandfather was dying of cancer. I was supposed to go and see him for the last time the very next day. I prayed for him and told God and Grandpa that it would be okay to leave and that I would understand. The next day, he was gone. I know in my heart of hearts that ghosts exist, some good and some bad. But I would like to think that they are there to reassure us and be there when we need them the most. Thanks for listening. I'm a 30-year-old male living in Fort McMurray, Alberta. I'm a manager of a rental company, and here's my story. On October 12, 2005, my nephew and I were playing video games on our Sony PlayStation. Meanwhile, my 18-year-old daughter was playing in our dining room area with her toys. Being tuned into the game, we were not paying too much attention to what she was doing. Suddenly, she would stop, come into the living room, and say, "It is scary, Daddy." Not thinking anything of it, we continued to play our game, and she went on playing. This then happened again, a second, then a third time. This time, I watched her to see what she was doing. She would run into the dining room area and say boo, then turn around into the living room area and say it's scary, then giggle. This happened about 6 or 7 times. We started to get a little freaked out, so I started to ask her what is scary, and she would reply it's scary every time I asked her. Getting nowhere, I then asked her to show me what was scary. She then led me and my nephew around the kitchen table, crouched down to the ground, and physically tried to pick something up from the floor. I asked her 3 more times to show me, and each time she would take me to the same spot and try to pick something up. We then moved to the living room to try and clear our heads to figure this out. Meanwhile, my daughter had gone into the dining room area again and started to look around the table to say boo and start giggling hard. This went on for about 15 minutes with her following something around the table, playing with it. Overall, this went on for about an hour and a half. Since then, about 2 or 3 days in the evenings, my daughter would have what I would call episodes of varying severity and length of her, seeing her playing with something in the apartment that always is in the kitchen or dining room area. Over the last 2 months, my daughter has been having more and more nightmares waking her up. I've noticed this since being aware that usually these episodes occur after waking up and after being up for 1 to 2 hours. I talked to a doctor about the nightmares, and he said it is very unusual for a child that young to experience nightmares causing her to wake up and stay awake. So, I'm wondering if it is the nightmares at all, or if it is something else keeping her up in the night, wanting to play. On October 1st, 2005, we moved out of the apartment, not due to related problems, but due to a nicer property becoming available. Last night, October 7th, 2005, I was in the apartment again with my nephew, trying to clean up and to get a few more things, since we have until the end of the month. I was walking to the bedroom and glanced in the bathroom. As I was walking by, in the mirror, looking at me, I saw a young girl, 10 to 13 years old. I stopped in my tracks, looked for what seemed several seconds, got a very good look, and then she was gone. She had long, dirty blonde hair, but what was very strange was that there was gray hair mixed in with blood. She had very high cheekbones, a thin face with a narrow chin, and thin lips. Her eyes were large for her face, and the colored part of the eyes were black. I remember this the most because she was staring directly into my eyes. She was very thin and was wearing a faded summer dress with very large 5-petaled flowers on it. Her skin was dark and gray and had what looked like age wrinkles on her face, but I could tell it was a young girl. She looked like she had been there for a very long time. At this point, I had kind of lost it and headed for the front door. My nephew asked what was going on, and I told him I was getting the fuck out of there. I calmed down and refused to let my fears take over. I mean, heck, she has been there for this long and has not hurt anyone. So, we finished what we were doing, and I started to load the truck. While I was downstairs, the nephew said it felt like someone was watching everything he was doing in this apartment. I, being a person that does not like horror films and do not watch them, cannot attribute this to my imagination because I've never seen anything like this in any movie or picture, and there's no doubt in my mind what I saw. At this point, my concern is this. I've heard that spirits can become attached to individuals and or material things. What can I try to do to try and prevent this from happening with my daughter or our belongings? Frankly, she can stay where she is for all I care. Hey guys, it's Phantom here. I know you guys were waiting for a video on Friday and maybe even Saturday, but I decided that it was time for me to make sure that everything was okay. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just really behind, guys. I'm so sorry. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and if you're old, do it anyway because that's what we do here in the Phantom realm of interestingness. I don't even know why I said that. But seriously, guys, I'll try to be more on schedule, but I have so much going on in my personal life that I can only get videos out when I can right now, which, I mean, I'm not really doing that bad, but on Tuesday there will be another video, so I should be back on track, and then I'll be out of town August 5th through the 12th. So that means people are crazy enough to work with me while I'm away on a trip. I'll have those videos pre-recorded for you guys to listen to, just a couple of them. I'll also have my compilation available, so you guys will still have what you want to have. And you know that song? It's your life, do what you gotta do. Okay, I'm not going to sing anymore. Just kidding, I'm going to sing more. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This video is concluding, and so is this outro. I can't sing and I can't talk, so that's a combination that's a disaster. So I will end this right now, and I hope you comment, subscribe, and share, and maybe even like. Okay, guys, I'll see you later. Love you.